Hola, clase. Well, now that you have learned how to form the present subjunctive, we are now going to take a look at how to set it up and then use number one. So get your notes ready. It's very important to learn how to set up the subjunctive sentences, and then we'll learn some of the verbs that we use with the subjunctive. The one thing you need to remember is that the subjunctive sentence is divided into two clauses. And here we have what a clause is. A group of words that contain both a conjugated verb and a subject. So our first clause in setting up the subjunctive is the main clause or the independent clause. And we call it independent because it can stand alone as a complete sentences. For example, pienso ir a cenar esta noche. That is the main independent clause. Manuel va a Peru en diciembre. That is the main independent clause. And so, I know you're getting sleepy now. Pay attention. And so, we have two clauses. Our first one is the main clause. Let's take a look now at our second one. Now, our second clause in setting up the subjunctive is called the subordinate or the dependent clause. And that is a clause that does not express a complete thought and therefore cannot stand alone. Remember our main clause. Pienso cenar esta noche cuando tú estudies. Cuando tú estudies is not a complete thought. It cannot stand alone. Manuel va a Perú en diciembre para conocer la cultura. Para conocer la cultura cannot stand alone. This is our subordinate or dependent clause. Now don't get angry. It's going to be okay. Now some of our uses of the subjunctive, and we're going to learn the first one today, involve noun clauses. And noun clauses are dependent clauses. Remember, we have a main clause and a dependent clause, or an independent clause and a subordinate clause, which serve as a direct object or predicate complement of another verb, just as nouns do. For example, quiero que, I want that, or better yet, I want what? That you go to Peru. This is our noun clause. Prefiero que, I prefer what? Mis estudiantes estudian mucho. That's the noun clause. Mis padres esperan que, they hope what? Que yo tenga un buen trabajo, that I have a good job. These are a noun clause, and use number one of the subjunctive is all about noun clauses. So we're going to take a look at our noun clauses. I know this is really boring. Don't worry. So let's take a look at our first use of the subjunctive in noun clauses. So let's repeat. The subjunctive is most often used in sentences that consist of a main clause and a subordinate clause. Those are the two ingredients that you need. Main clause, subordinate clause. And that the main clause contains a verb or expression that triggers the subjunctive, and that trigger will occur in the subordinate clause. The conjunction que connects these two clauses. It's going to be very important to remember that little word, relative pronoun, que. So here's a better look at what I'm talking about. We have a main clause, we have the connector que right here, and we have the subordinate clause. So the main clause in our use number one is a verb of will. Es muy importante que vayas al hotel ahora mismo. Here's our subjunctive right here, vayas. So it's very important that you go to the hotel right now. This is subjunctive because it's unknown whether or not you're going to go. Just because it's important that you do doesn't mean you are. You don't know, I don't know, no one knows. The future is a mist. That's how we set up the subjunctive. So we have the main clause, we have the connector, and then we have the subordinate clause. So here's use number 1 of the subjunctive. It's the subjunctive in noun clauses with verbs and expressions of will and influence. That's use number 1. And remember how to set it up. We have the main clause, the connector K, and the subordinate clause. I know. It's going to be okay. We're going to do this. So what is exactly verbs of will and influence? Well, when someone wants to affect the actions or behavior of other people. For example, I want you to do something. That doesn't mean you're going to do it, but because I want you to do it, it's affecting your behavior. Whether or not you do it, I don't know, you don't know, no one knows. But that's the idea of the subjunctive. Verbs of will and influence. Calm down now. Calm down. It's going to be okay. But please be careful, señoritas. The Spanish subjunctive is different from English. We like to say, I want you to go. And in that case, I want you to go uses an infinitive right there, even though it's a verb of will and influence. But this is not how Spanish works. The subjunctive would be used in the subordinate clause. Now here's another key to understanding and setting up the subjunctive. When the main clause contains a verb or expression of will and influence, the subjunctive is required in the subordinate clause, but here's the key phrase, provided that the two clauses have different subjects, and you're going to see a lot of examples of this coming up, so don't get nervous here. Provided that the two clauses have different subjects. I'll show you many examples. So here are the examples right here. We have, once again, the main clause, the connector K, and the subordinate clause. This is how I want everyone to set up their subjunctive sentences. Main clause, connector, subordinate clause. Verb of will, the K, and then the subjunctive. For example, mi mamá prefiere que yo saque la basura. Notice we have a change in subject. We have mamá in the main clause, we have yo in the subordinate clause. Here's where the subjunctive is, because the idea is that it may or may not happen. Just because she prefers I take the garbage out, I may not take it. She just prefers that I do, but I may not take it out. That's why we have the subjunctive here. Enrique quiere que salgamos a cenar. He wants us to go out to dinner. Notice the change in subject from Enrique to nosotros here. Necesito, this would be yo, que tú compres la comida. I need you to buy the food. Just because I need you to buy it doesn't mean that you're going to buy it. I just need you to buy it, but you may not buy it. I don't know. No one knows. The future's a mist. But notice how we have the change in subject. And also, señoritas, you need to remember this. Please make sure you highlight this. Main clause verbs, that's these guys right here. Main clause verbs are in the present indicative. That's the present tense that you learned way back when. This is the subjunctive, the present subjunctive right here in the subordinate clause. So now I hope you understood the idea of having a change in subjects from the main clause to the subordinate clause. Because in Spanish, the infinitive will be used with words of or expressions of will and influence if there's no change in subject. So therefore, you're not going to be using the subjunctive there's no subordinate clause. We just have one main clause because we don't change subjects. For example, no quiero sacudir los muebles. I don't want to dust. I'm not saying I don't want you to dust. That would be subjunctive. It's all about yo. It's all about me. Paco prefiere descansar. This is the infinitive right here. He prefers to rest. It's not about him preferring that other people rest, so that's why the infinitive is used. Es importante sacar la basura. This is a general statement. It's important to take out the garbage. I'm not specifying that you take out the garbage or that she take out the garbage. So we use the infinitive. No es necesario quitar la mesa. It's not necessary to clear the table. And so therefore, I'm not saying it's not necessary that you, I'm just talking about a general idea. So the infinitive is used, not the subjunctive here. So here we have a whole list of verbs of will and influence that I'd like you to put down on your notes. Take the left side to put the Spanish and the right side to put the English. These are verbs that trigger the subjunctive. These are the verbs of will and influence. These are the verbs that you will be using in the main clause. And these verbs will be used in the present indicative. So let's continue the list right here. Here's some more verbs. These are the verbs that trigger the subjunctive, and hopefully we'll all be able to practice with all of these. Some of these you've already seen, like pedir and preferir, querer. But this verb right here is an interesting verb. Rogar. It means to beg or to plead. And it's also a stem-changing verb. So you could say, yo ruego que tú vayas. I am begging you to go. Just because I'm begging you to go doesn't mean you will. You may not. I don't know. You don't know. No one knows. The future is a mist. Now, señoritas, some of the verbs that you just jotted down in your notes will take indirect object pronouns, or at least they're often used with indirect object pronouns. And I'm talking about aconsejar, importar, etc., these right here. And that the indirect object pronoun found in the main clause will serve as the subject in the subordinate clause. Well, what do I mean by that? Let's take a look. Well, for example, señoritas, here we have the list of those verbs I just mentioned, and we have te aconsejo. Well, here's te right here. This is the indirect object pronoun. It's going to serve as the subject of the subordinate clause. Te aconsejo que tú estudies. I advise you to study. Here's another one. Me pides? Me is the indirect. It's going to serve as the subject of the subordinate clause. Me pides que yo pongo la mesa? Are you asking me to set the table? So here's the yo, because that is the indirect, and it serves as the subject of the subordinate clause. One more. Le sugiero a Marta. So le is referring to Marta, and then she is the subject in the subordinate clause. Le sugiero a Marta que vaya a casa. I suggest that Marta go home. And once again, just because I suggest that she go home doesn't mean she will. You know what I'm going to say next, so I won't say it. But anyway, here are two more. And now, Class A, to wrap it up, we also have impersonal expressions that are considered expressions of will and influence. The key here, you need to remember, these will only work as bueno, es mejor, es malo, es importante, es necesario, es urgente, if there's a change in subject. If there's a change in subject from es, which means it's good that, you have to have that K. If there's a change in subject, you're going to have the K and then a new subject. Let's take a look. Es bueno que vayas a México este verano. It's good that you're going to Mexico this summer. So we have a change in subject from it to the to form. So you're going to use the subjunctive, because even though it's good that you're going this summer, doesn't mean you are. You may not go. Nobody knows the future. You don't know. I don't know. No one knows. The future is a mist. Es mejor que trabajes para ganar dinero. It's better that you work in order to earn money. Just because it's better that you work, does that mean you are? I don't know. And then we have two more right here. So class A, that wraps up our first use of the subjunctive. We're going to take the rest of the semester to practice with the first use of the subjunctive. Please remember that the subjunctive will be with us for the rest of the school year. That means till May. Muchas gracias. Nos vemos.